Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Yvette Ankrah MBE. I am 46. I'm based in the UK, and this is my story. So the moment I realized I had to make a complete change was when I was recovering from having a lumbar puncture that I did not need. So how did I get to that point? How did I get to that space of lying at home, not really being able to move because they'd hit a nerve, so I couldn't really move my leg? Well, I've always been somebody that burns the candle at both ends in the middle. I have always been someone who strives for goals, who wants to achieve and gives always 100% to absolutely everything all the time. And that was my journey, and that was what I believed I needed to do in order to be successful. So let me take you back a little bit. I realized there might be an issue many years ago when I developed stomach pains during my A-levels. I was around 19. And I'd go from doctor to doctor and gastroenterologists, and they couldn't really find anything wrong. They said, "Oh, you've got IBS." It's okay. And I realized that, eventually that stress was one of my triggers, but I always pushed through. So I did this with everything. So I would take on new challenges, strive for more at work, go for more goals. And all the time my body was having these various alarm bells, but I would ignore them and just push through until I couldn't. The first time I actually burned out, I was in my 20s. I was working in PR, and this was great. I was doing 12-hour days, in London. This was the ideal thing for me, but it wasn't. And I got to the point where I was completely done. I had nothing left to give anybody. But what I thought was the issue was my environment. And environment can be a really big issue for most people. But if you are somebody who also has that within themselves, who wants to be a high achiever, who wants to give more, who wants to always give that 100% to everything and to everyone, the environment is important, but so is your behavior and your patterns. And I thought, okay, I'll get another job. I'll just change jobs. I quit my job. I went to lie in my grandmother's house in Ghana and think, okay, what do I do now? And, I was in my mid-20s by this point, but still thinking that, I need to be successful. I'm going to push, I'm going to do all these things. And so I went into another environment. and did exactly the same thing. So fast forward, yet another bit of burnout happens again. But for me, this was my way of being. I didn't know any other way to be. All I knew was, this is how I operate. This is how I create success in my life, by working very, very hard, giving it all, and pushing through any pain and discomfort. And I don't know if you've ever been there, where you live for the weekends and you live for holidays, because you think that if I just take a weekend out, if I just take some time off, I will feel better. But then all you do is press pause to go back to behaving exactly the same way that you've always done. So this whole striving for goals, this whole pushing myself, is in all aspects of my life. You know, I had a list of things I wanted to achieve by 30, and I ticked them all off by 28. I even use this approach to find a husband. I'm like, I need to do these things, and I'm going to do this, and I'm really focused and logical, and that's what I did. And then I went forward again to set up my own business, and I became a mother. And what I realized was, my same habits, same behaviors that I had in the corporate world, I did at home in my own business. So what does that look like? Working long hours, not looking after myself, not taking breaks, not nourishing myself properly. That's even more difficult to do when you also have a young child. And by this point, I was studying for a PhD, had a young baby, and a new business. And then I started to get really ill. And one day I was attempting to take my child to a play event, and I collapsed. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't call him, and I was really, really worried, because I was at home alone with a 2-year-old who couldn't really speak well, couldn't call for help. So I was able to recover a little bit and call a neighbour to help me. And that was the first time I collapsed. This continued, and I was diagnosed with a condition called fibromyalgia. Now, if you don't know what fibromyalgia is, it is a condition that causes fatigue, lots of muscle pain. It has varying degrees of issues. There are some people who are bedridden in a wheelchair. It causes brain fog. And also stops people functioning in many ways. So I had a moment where my son was 2 years old and I had collapsed at home. I was really breathless. I was trying to call his name and I couldn't get the words out. I was incredibly worried because he's 2. He can't really phone anybody. And I managed to get enough energy to call a neighbour, to phone a neighbour and ask her to come and take care of my son. But she drove me to the doctors and I was then taken to hospital. And that was the first time I collapsed and knew there was a serious issue. I eventually got diagnosed with a condition called fibromyalgia. So for those of you who don't know about it, it's a condition that has a range of symptoms. So you can get extreme fatigue, muscle pain, muscle spasms, brain fog. You may have issues with digestion. For me, it affected my cognition. I struggled to read, to walk even short distances. I was often in bed. I would feel like I had the whole energy pulled out of me. And this meant that I had lots of different things that happened, including having a lumbar puncture I didn't need. So if you look at my discharge papers from that particular episode, it says fibromyalgia was the cause of the reason I was in there. But they thought I had viral meningitis when I was first admitted. I had a range of different things like that happen. And this went on for more than 6 years. And at the same time, all of this was happening, I was in the middle of a PhD. I launched my own business. And I even remember one day coming out of hospital to go straight to a network meeting that I was running. And I didn't think that was crazy. I thought that was perfectly normal, because I'm someone that pushes through. I'm someone that does this. I'm someone that just keeps going. And here's the thing, my body had kept telling me, you cannot keep going. And I'd ignored it. I'd failed to listen to it. I'm like, well, I am the most capable person on the planet. Why do I need to worry about this? I'll just rest for a weekend and I'll be fine. And that was not how it happened. So I didn't listen. So my body made me listen. And obviously, I like to learn the hard way. So it took me a while to really hear and understand the messages that my body was telling me. So for me, that was the journey that I had to go through. And I talk about self-care, I talk about well-being, I talk about health, not just as a professional, because I have gone on to train and do more work in this field, but also as somebody who's lived it, who's been there when their health has not been great, when I couldn't play with my child, when I couldn't hold cutlery because my joints were so badly swollen. It impacted every part of my life. And that moment of lying there, realizing I couldn't really move, was my decision that I wanted my life to completely change. And the fibromyalgia for me became a self-care partner. If I was doing too much, I would have this little voice or nudge to say, dial it back a bit, slow down a little bit. So I listened. And I got to the point of changing my health, my diet, my behavior towards my well-being, my connection between mind and body, to the point that I no longer have the condition. And that took a while, and that took a lot of changes, but I don't have any of those issues and haven't had for many years. But that was my journey. And along the way, I trained in NLP and I became an NLP master. I also trained in emotional freedom technique, and I use those tools to help myself and my clients to adapt and change and shift. And I work with loads of women who are like me, high achievers, want more, who want to be successful, to want to give back to their communities, who want to make change happen. And I work with these women, and so many of them are burning out or burnt out. And I believe nobody should be carried out of any building. We should walk out if we choose. No issue is, in terms of work, should be worth your health. None of it should be. And I found that in taking those steps, in making those decisions for my own life, I have got success on my terms. And success does not mean I have to work 12-hour days. I've achieved things I wanted to achieve. I have given back to people. I've supported people. I've supported myself. I have developed skills and strengths that I didn't know I had. And when faced with new challenges and new adversity, my body doesn't just shut down. I have healthy ways of dealing with it. And also, we all went through the pandemic, and I found that some of the tools and techniques that I learned and teach are what helped me get through. So that's my story, and where I am today is happy, healthy. My business has increased, my company's grown. I still want to achieve things. I still believe in being a high achiever, but I do it differently, and I operate in a better way that's much more healthier and sustainable.
Wow, what a journey you've been on. What an incredible story. This podcast is called the Diversity Connector because I connect with a lot of women who are living in countries where they are minorities, where we feel that we have to put in 200-300% to achieve our goals. Now, you said something really interesting, that your health is your wealth. If there is a woman who's listening to us right now, who is now down on her knees, trying to get back up again, has burnt out and is struggling, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you have wanted somebody to have told you before you got to that point?
I would say that ask for help. When you are somebody that is incredibly capable, people assume that you are okay and that you can get it on, and that whole, she's a strong woman. No, don't be strong. Don't be strong. Take the help, ask for help, allow yourself to not be that strong person all the time, because people assume you don't need their help and they won't give it. So that's the first thing. Reach out for help. The second thing is speak to yourself with kindness. Often when we're in these spaces, we're not very kind to ourselves. We blame ourselves, where we say quite horrible things in terms of our internal dialogue. So, there may be a myriad of reasons why you're in the space you're in the space, but none of them will be better if you talk to yourself in the way that you wouldn't talk to your best friend or someone you love dearly. And we should love ourselves dearly. And the final one is just take some time for you, step away, stop. If there are things that are causing you to feel so overwhelmed, just take some time to stop and reassess what it is that will bring you the joy, will make you happy, that will light your life up again. Because often when we're in this space, we've forgotten the things that bring us joy. We've forgotten what makes us happy. We've forgotten what it feels like to feel good, because we haven't for such a long time. So if you can stop and take a break and just assess for you, what are the things that I need to make me happy?
I love that. I love the one where you said, be kind to yourself. They say that we are our own worst critics. We
Mm-hmm.
say things to ourselves you would never say to your best friend.
Yep.
So when you hear that negative self-talk, that chatter coming in your head, just ask yourself, would I say this to my best friend? And if you wouldn't,
Exactly.
yes.
We should
I
be our
love
best friends. We should be the people that we love.
yes.
When people list the things they love, how often do they even put themselves on the list?
They're not even there. It's crazy. Now, you've developed a methodology that is
Mm-hmm.
helping women called Clarity, the
Yeah.
Clarity Method. Tell us a little bit about that and how you're helping your clients gain clarity.
So clients do come to me for that particular thing, for the clarity, but the clarity, I turned it into an acronym because it starts with calm. Often we're so overwhelmed, we're so busy, we're not calm. And if we're making decisions from a space of, quick, rash decisions because we're not calm, we don't make good decisions. So the first thing is inner calm, learning how to do that. I'm about lasting change. This is not quick fix stuff. This is not sticking plaster. It's about making real changes deeply within us, changing behaviors, changing patterns, changing beliefs about that we hold about ourselves. And it's also about taking action and making concrete steps towards change, and it's making sure they're achievable and that they're realistic as well. And I don't believe in setting anybody else up for failure. And it's all about making sure that you create your own way of being that changes yourself and your business, if that's something that you're in as well, because I work with a lot of business owners. And this is something that I'm actually putting together in a book at the moment. So that's going to be my next thing.
Fantastic. Now, being a woman of color living in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
I'm here in New Zealand, Australia. There are a lot of challenges that we face, especially when you're working in the corporate
Yeah.
world.
Mm-hmm.
What challenges have you faced throughout your career, and how have you overcome them?
Okay, so I've had to deal with, institutional racism, sexism, and I have had situations, particularly when I was a lot younger, where it's, you can't possibly be the person that's running this event or running this meeting. And I was never sure whether they were had an issue with my age, my gender, or my race, or all of the above. I have dealt with quite a lot of that across my career. How I've dealt with it is by connecting with others, particularly others that look like me, making sure that I've got good, strong networks, making sure that I've got spaces where I can talk and I can be heard and listened to if that space that I'm in was not a safe space. So definitely doing that. Building my own resilience as well, but also being part of organisations and campaigns to start changing the systems that are there, changing the organisations and structures that are in. And my corporate work is about helping creating organisations where all people can thrive. It's not so much about just inclusion, it's about belonging. People need to feel that they belong to the space they're in. If they don't, they will not be happy. And those things could also cause burnout and stress and overwhelm as well.
That's fantastic. Yep, it's very, very important to make sure that you have your own back.
Yeah.
Now,
I would like to add just one little bit about that as well, just to say that my culture and heritage is incredibly important. And,
yes.
Knowing my people, knowing my heritage, being part of my community is also incredibly important. And that, having strong roots and knowing where I'm from helps too.
So your intersectionality spans another country. You are a woman who has lived in the UK most of your life, but it sounds to me like you've still got one foot in Africa. How does your intersectionality help an organization, do you think? A lot of people don't realize the strengths that diverse people bring to the organization. Tell us, what is your point of difference?
Well, I was born and raised in the UK, but my household was Ghanaian, and my PhD work is about the Ghanaian second generation. That's what I research. So, when you're looking at diversity in all forms, I have an insight into another world, another culture, another ways of being, have that kind of expansive nature of looking at not just one view, because I've always had a dual view, and then being able to translate that world and also the world of being in the UK and being born and raised here. So I have that kind of understanding of what it means to have another life, another language spoken at home, different foods, different beliefs, different, all of those things are important, because so many places now, we're global in corporates. Not everyone that you deal with will look like you, sound like you, or is like you. So being able to work with people from all backgrounds brings a diversity of ideas, brings richness to your organization, and stops it just being more of the same. And without those diversity of ideas, you don't necessarily grow, you don't expand, and you miss out on a lot of talent if you spend all the time with people who are exactly like you.
That is so true. Now, one of the things that has helped me throughout my career are the allies and the people who have sponsored me within the organizations I've worked. Why is allyship and mentoring and sponsoring so important, do you think?
It's incredibly important because, particularly in organizations where you have particular groups in the minority, those people often don't have a huge amount of power in terms of where they sit within the organization. Everybody actually does have their own power, because often we are experts, which is why we're there. We have knowledge, we have other things, we have connections, but we may not have the power in terms of the hierarchy of that organization. So having allies is important in that space, and mentoring also helps. And the whole thing is that, particularly I found after the George Floyd incident, it felt like it was left to mostly the Black people within the organisation to organize and change the whole structures. You can't change a structure you didn't build. So allies need to be involved in that. You can't expect, all the women to want to be the only people that change things. Men have to be involved in that conversation too. So, the disabled people that are there, they can't do it all unless the able-bodied are, there supporting them as well. So everybody has to work together to create an environment that works for all. It can't be, the energy and burden of just one person or one type of people to do it. So that's why it's important to have that. And with the mentorship as well, it goes both ways. Mentorship in terms of people opening doors for you, people connecting you with others, and especially when you do reverse mentoring, people that have never connected with people who've got very different backgrounds to them learn a lot as well. So it's a really rich process. It's not just one way. Everybody's interactions enables others to learn and grow too.
Now, you managed to get a very prestigious award. Tell us about that, the MBE that you received. What was the motivation for that?
So I was part of a campaign to get more support for women in business, and I co-wrote the manifesto for women in business, and we did a lot of grassroots campaigning around the time of one of our major elections in the UK. It was myself and 3 other women who we actually met on LinkedIn, and we really wanted to have a change. We wanted more representation in terms of government levels. We wanted, when there were government contracts, that more women were at the table. We also wanted for self-employed women to have a safety net, because you didn't get one. So often women would drop out of their businesses because of childcare or care for elders, and businesses would start, and if you were self-employed, you wasn't able to get any money from the government to help you. And we're around 5-6 years on from that campaign, but maybe a bit longer now, and some of those things are actually in place now. We actually had more parliamentarians that were women. We had, changes to legislation that actually supported the self-employed, more things to help women grow and develop. We've still got a long way to go. We still get very little funding for, female VCs. It's less than 2%. We still haven't got a lot of women in certain spaces. We still have a boys' club in many ways for women that are starting businesses or trying to establish and grow businesses. But we do see that when women do, they change their local economies, they build very successful businesses, they give back to their communities, they thrive, and other women thrive too when women are supported and invested in. So it's something I'm still very passionate about, and I do it in slightly different ways now, but that's what I was actually given the MBE for. And I went wearing my full kente, my Ghanaian outfit, because that was the only way I was going to turn up to the palace. I was going to go as me. So so that was quite a good day, and I took my son and my husband and my niece as well to the palace.
Wonderful. So now let me teleport you into the future, and we're going to have a little thought experiment. If time was an illusion and time didn't exist, and I could teleport you to go and have a conversation with a 90-year-old you, and you're sitting in your rocking chair surrounded by your children, your great-grandchildren, your dogs and your cats. If you could go and have a conversation with this wise woman, based on how you're living your life and what life has taught you to this point, what would you say to her?
What would I say to her? Well, it's been an amazing ride. It's, there was so much more to come, so much more to do. And I'm kind of at the point where I am blossoming and growing. And I think that my 40s has been amazing. And I'm so looking forward to the 50s and 60s. And if I've got to 90, I've clearly had fun along the way. I doubt I have dogs and cats because I'm not really a pet person, but it would be cool to still have people around who I'm giving talks to. I'd be surrounded hopefully by a library of which would contain some of my books too, and say to her, it's been amazing and thank you.
I love that. I like asking that question because a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in us.
Mm.
And sometimes you can just tap into the essence of who you're becoming to get all of the answers to the issues you're experiencing. And you just have to go within and look for those answers within you. You have all of the answers that you need.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming online and gracing us with your presence today. This has been an absolute honor meeting you. Thank you for your work.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing it when it comes out.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is connecting you with some phenomenal people from all over the world. Tune in again tomorrow when I have another interesting guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thanks so much, Yvette. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay connected.